Welcome to this explainer. When we think about the Roman Empire, we usually picture this astonishing 500-year civilization, right? We're talking monumental architecture, brilliant visionaries, and a legacy of legendary conquests that literally shaped the modern world. But hidden beneath all that pristine marble and those military triumphs is a much, much darker reality. Today, we're going to look past the legendary glory of Rome and uncover a terrifying, hidden pattern of violence that completely plagued its highest office.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Out of the first 70 Roman emperors, more than half were murdered. Just let that sink in for a second. More than half. We're talking about men who were stabbed, strangled, poisoned, and beheaded. Statistically speaking, being the emperor of Rome was the most dangerous job in human history. I mean, how does the most powerful man on earth end up with a target on his back more often than not? Let's look at some of the most infamous cases to find out.
Case 1. Julius Caesar. The original betrayal.
So, to really understand this bloody legacy, we absolutely have to start with the assassination that set the ultimate precedent. Picture this. It's March 15th, 44 BC, the infamous Ides of March. Caesar walks into the theater of Pompeii for a Senate meeting, and he actually ignored frantic warnings from a soothsayer and his own wife to get there. He walked right into a trap. He suffered 23 stab wounds right there on the Senate floor, completely surrounded by a mob of 60 senators. And the absolute most chilling part of the whole shebang, the man who stepped forward to deliver the very first blow was his closest friend, Marcus Brutus.
Now, pop culture has given us Shakespeare's famous myth of Caesar gasping, "Et tu, Brute." You've probably heard that, right? But the historical reality is actually much darker. Recognizing this total, utter betrayal, Caesar likely said absolutely nothing. No famous last words. He simply pulled his toga over his face in silence and bled out right there on the floor.
Case 2. Emperor Caligula, the mad god killed by his own guards.
Caligula had a startlingly brief reign of just 4 years, but man, his behavior became shockingly bizarre. His terrifying hubris pushed his entire inner circle right to the breaking point. He declared himself a living god, humiliated senators by forcing them to run for miles beside his chariot, and famously made his horse a consul of Rome. Even if some of these stories were just exaggerated Roman propaganda, the reality of his erratic cruelty was severe enough to drive his own personal security force, the Praetorian Guard, to take drastic action.
On January 24th, 41 AD, Caligula's guards cornered him in a dark palace tunnel right after the games. They delivered 30 stab wounds. 30! And to ensure absolutely no one could claim his throne or exact any revenge later, they went ahead and killed his wife and his infant daughter that exact same day.
The aftermath of all this is a chilling testament to just how deeply despised this guy was by the time he died. Ancient historians noted, the Senate celebrated, the people cheered, even his own family didn't mourn. The empire didn't just passively accept his brutal murder. They were intensely, genuinely relieved by it.
Case 3. Emperor Commodus, strangled in his bath.
So we're jumping to the year 1902 AD. Now, you might know Commodus as the villain from the movie Gladiator, but the real historical figure was somehow a whole lot worse than his Hollywood portrayal. His megalomania was entirely out of control. I mean, he literally renamed the city of Rome after himself, fought rigged matches in the gladiatorial arena, and genuinely believed he was the actual reincarnation of Hercules. This extreme narcissism alienated absolutely everyone, eventually uniting his advisors, his own mistress, and the Praetorian Guard in a desperate plot against him. Let's see how this builds, because the plot against him was an act of sheer desperation. First, the conspirators tried poisoning his food. Classic move, right? But when the poison acted too slowly, and Commodus actually started throwing it up, they panicked. Terrified that he might survive and execute them all, they completely skipped the subtleties and set a professional wrestler directly into his bath chamber to physically strangle the 31-year-old emperor. And once again, Rome didn't even pretend to grieve.
The lightning round assassination speedrun.
Okay, by this point in history, the dam had completely broken. Imperial assassinations devolved from these grand theatrical conspiracies into frequent, bizarre, and just undignified chaos. Take Caracalla. He wasn't killed in some grand Senate hall. He was stabbed mid-squat while urinating on the side of a road in the Syrian desert by his own soldiers. Literally zero dignity. Then there's 18-year-old Elagabalus, who spent his brief reign throwing the most depraved parties in Roman history. His guards eventually had enough, murdered him and his mother, and literally threw their bodies into the Tiber River like garbage.
And then we have the number 87. Emperor Pertinax lasted exactly 87 days in power. Why? Well, because he tried to actually do his job and reform the notoriously corrupt Praetorian Guard. They repaid his efforts at good governance by storming the palace gates and cutting his head off. 87 days.
The sheer, terrifying intimacy of these murders really cannot be overstated. Take Domitian, for example. He wasn't killed by an angry mob of strangers. He suffered 8 stab wounds in a highly coordinated attack right inside his own bedroom. And the assassins? They were the people he trusted most in the entire world: his own wife, his servants, and his senior officials.
Conclusion: an empire built on blood.
All right, let's slow down and take a step back from the chaos for a moment. You know, when we study Rome, it's so incredibly easy to get caught up in the amazing legacy of their architecture, their laws, and their conquests. But this explainer shows us that this vast empire was inextricably tied to a culture of extreme political violence and intimate betrayal that makes modern political struggles look like a friendly school debate. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If Rome was truly the absolute pinnacle of ancient civilization, why was its highest office a literal death sentence? It really challenges us to rethink the true nature of power, ambition, and security in the ancient world. Sometimes, the most dangerous place to stand isn't on the battlefield, it's right on the throne. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this changes how you view the incredible and incredibly brutal history of Rome.